I'm RV Basco and I'm a visual artist. Okay, so it started mid 40s, and that was the age when you should have been settled already. But I was getting kind of bored with what I was doing because I was a contractor, furniture designer, and I was working with wood, so it's manufacturing. Now there are limitations when it comes to those things, and with art, that's when I saw that art is unlimited. You can create and create and create, and there's no limit to it. So I found something that's more rewarding. So the journey was actually it started 2014. Okay, 2014. I wanted to really become a full-time painter. The idea there was just was just to earn enough to bring my kids to school, and then we live a fairly comfortable life. And then of course, as the year goes by, you get to be more ambitious. So 2015, that's when I really decided that I wanted to becoming a full-time visual artist. Now I had to make a realistic plan, which is a 5-year plan. 5-year plan that I had to break down 5 times. So every year, there was a plan to do this until you reach there. So the goal is to become a visual artist 5 years time. But things change along the way, so that's why I break it down. And then you kind of tweak everything, fine tune, and eventually you reach there. But it wasn't easy because my son was already going to college, so the overhead and everything. So we had to lower really our lifestyle. We had to give up a lot of things. Basically, what me, my wife, my son, we discussed this, and we said, we'll just do this for 5 years. There'll be no vacation, no going out for dinners. Once we get there, then we continue where we left off. So natupad naman yung 5-year plan. Of course, that time I was predicting already the worst scenario and the best scenario. Now, what I didn't know was yung worst scenario was really worse pa. But the best was really much better than I expected. Because actually, at this age, I shouldn't even be here. I shouldn't even be talking to you guys. Artists, they start after school. In my case, it was really difficult because I was already established in my field. And now I'm going through this whole new art thing that is very different from my previous career. I think my personality is like this. So I aim for something and I really try to get it. Because first of all, you have to believe. You really have to believe that you are there, even in times of hardship. There will be so many challenges along the way. My personality is like, the more obstacles, the more challenges that I get, the more I charge, and the more I see myself as succeeding. Because looking back, whatever I was doing there, I felt that was the best. But now if I look back, I'm too embarrassed to look at it, diba? Because I was just starting and all that. For every challenge, family member or friends who try to doubt your goals, the more I persevere. So this goes back all the way to high school. In high school, a friend of mine introduced me to a comic book, and I was never interested, for some reason, I don't know why until now. I don't know why. I was never interested in superheroes. I was never interested in that. I never read it, and I read a lot, but for some reason I couldn't read it. And then one friend in high school, he came up to me and he showed me some European magazine, underground magazine. And when I read it, there were no superheroes in it, and it was more matured because they were dealing with political and reality, mostly the gray areas of life, and some fantasy, all mixed together. So the artists there were all Europeans, and I was influenced by British illustrator Ian Miller, Enki Bilal, Mobius. Those are 2 French artists. And from there I started drawing, and then when you start, you copy. There's no such thing as originality. You always have to copy from your heroes. So I was trying to copy them, but they were probably just too good that I couldn't copy them. But I eventually developed my own way of drawing them. After college, everything had to stop because after college, the first thing you do is look for a job because that's what smart people do. But I didn't know that not everyone is meant to be employed. Not everyone is meant to have a boss. After 7 years being in a company, I decided to go on my own. And then I saw our local artists. I don't want to name them anymore, but they became my new heroes. And that's when I said, okay, what's this? I'm more convinced. So when I was in high school, I was already drawing. My medium that time was watercolor. And then I said, okay, what if I try to learn to do oils? Because ever since watercolor was, during my time, it was considered inferior. Oil was the ultimate medium. So I went to oil and then started experiment. And then eventually I started painting social realism, which was the heroes from my teenage years. But there's one thing that I never outgrew, which is children's illustration style. And I think I'm being more known with that style. Actually, I don't know what it's called. I think a lot of people accept that style and subjects and actually enjoy it also. So there, just continue there. And then I saw several European artists, illustrators also. And this was when Pinterest started coming in. So there's so much. I'm very bad with names. So I don't know sometimes where the influence comes from. I only know several, but I know that it came from all those things that I was looking at. Coming from social realism, so social realism is very deep. It's all about the hardships of the normal worker, all their problems and all this. And I was really interested in that. Now, in children's illustration, I was interested in the illustration style, but I was never interested in the stories because I was not interested in the rhymes and all that. Now, there's this one book that influenced me the most, and that's The Giving Tree. I doubt it was meant for children. That's what appealed to me the most. So choosing the kids, the boy and the girl, that one is really innocence. And what I'm trying to project probably is them being prepared to this whole gray area, because we live in a gray area. This is not black and white. And that's why I say that I'm not a believer of a utopian world. I'm not dystopian also, but I don't believe in a utopian world because it's impossible to develop empathy if everyone's just happy. If everyone's just happy, everyone's perfect. If you and we play tennis, it's always draw, because you're good and I'm good. It's always draw. So it's kind of boring. But if you have experience in life, I think that's more interesting to paint than if you paint such a perfect world. And the kids actually, my paintings, I choose this candy color palette, but actually it's also kind of melancholy, and for me that is more poetic. And I think that's why I try to mute it down with colors and with kids. And whatever message there probably is all mostly about empathy. So that one I have to go back, because what happened was I was still in social realism, and from time to time I would go to children's illustration style. So I was working in this way, parallel, but sometimes here, and then my two sisters passed away 7 years apart. And then for me, how that happened, that only happens in the movies. It doesn't happen to us or anything. So I really didn't know how to deal with it. And being able to paint, it helped a lot, because number one, that's when these two, social realism and children's illustration, that's when they met. It was like this for many years, and then they met like this when my sister died, because I had this very profound experience and I just had to let it out. And when I started painting, This is the first time I painted a little boy. A lot of things were, I included things that didn't make sense, like fishes with faces, and then candles with wings, and all these strange things that didn't make sense. But when it was all done, I looked back and I saw something very interesting. And ever since then, I never went back to the old way I was painting. So now every time I paint, there's a time that I would think of them always every time, but now lessen and lessen and lessen. They're always there. They're always there. Probably the boy and the girl is just my sisters. It just so happens I just wanted one boy and one girl, but I think it's them. I'll just share what worked for me. I've met a lot of artists who wants this without going through the hardships. In my case, I have a very high risk tolerance for pain. When I say pain, it's the hardships of getting there. Because if you can imagine yourself being successful in times of extreme hardship, then I think nobody can stop you from achieving what you want. I really had a very clear vision of myself then, how I would be 5 years, 6 years, 7 years from the time that I started. And I think it's very important for people to first assess the risk tolerance, because not everyone can, the usual saying is the starving artist. Not everyone can do that. So they have to assess, because if not, then they have to look for a job. Second is not think of the money first. Of course, they have to take that in consideration, but that should never be the motivational factor of achieving something that you want. And then, of course, believing in yourself, because throughout the journey, there are people who are doubting you. You already doubt yourself if you're gonna make it or not. And then some people, they'll come up to you and they say, "What are you doing? You're this, and then you're being an artist. Who do you think you are?" So all those things, you just have to block it all, because you've already thought of it very well, and make a really realistic long-term plan. Because some of them, they think that they can do it in 1 year, 2 years. When they find out that I'll do it in 5 years, then they lose motivation and they don't wanna be artists anymore. Or they become artists but they never make it, so they're entirely in limbo. For me, that is what I did, and that's what worked. Well, what I really want is how the paintings affect the audience. That's what I want, because as I said, I paint through the subconscious. It's something that I really don't understand. It looks cute, but when you look at it further, you try to dissect it, then you start seeing that there's something more. Right now, what I'm doing is probably a continuation of what I was doing last year, because last March, I did a show with Joaquin, and I think I came up with 14 paintings, and I felt that wasn't done yet. So now it's like a continuation of that one. Now it's more matured, it's more poetic, and it's more simple also. In the compositional aspect of it is very simple. So see you at MoCAF 2024 from July 5 to 7 at the Marquis Place, BGC.